Morning YouTube. We're going to do a bit more work on the recumbent today. I've decided I'm going to need to sort out the chain line, get a chain on it, then I'll know where I am. First of all, steerer tube. That was a quill stem. I've ground off the bit that comes out. So I've just got a tube. Now I needed a bar that'll go over that to make an extended steerer, and I found one. In my garage I had some old crutches, and this is the top part of a crutch, and it slips over that tube pretty nice. There's a little bit of movement, look. A little bit of movement, but a beer can aluminium shim will sort that out. I can grind that down there, make a slot there, and I've ordered a split collet, a 1 inch. That is 1 inch diameter, that pipe, that tube. And online I found a split collet which they're used for holding propellers onto shafts, believe it or not, on boats. But they do them in a 1 inch internal diameter, so that can clamp around there. I mean, it is super strong as well. It's a bit of a shim in there. Split that, clamp on there, see what that is like. But anyway, chain line. Obviously that's a bit long. It'll be cut down to the right length. Don't mind the hammer hanging on the pedal, that's just a weight to keep it in position. If I turn this, we're hitting the frame there. Obviously, it's got to go somewhere. So I need an idler. And I usually use TerraCycle idlers, which are amazing, but they're like £67 each. And you have to import them from Europe, from Icleta. So if you want one, have a look at Icleta, they're brilliant, and it's like really fast delivery. But I'm going to use a skateboard wheel. I got 4 of them online for £10 with the bearings, with a little spacer inside, perfect for the job. And I'm going to put one about there, so that will clear. It'll bring that down from the back. That will give it the required clearance, I think, around there somewhere, about that high, that far down. But obviously I need to make a slot in this for the chain to run in. And like all good daytime TV programs, whoop, here's one I made earlier. I've mounted it on a, I think it's M8 stainless bolt, and I've left it with a bit of lateral movement, just a bit, so that the chain can sort of find its own line. That can obviously be adjusted more if you want, but the chain will find its own line. It'll stop excess rubbing on the sidewalls, might make it last a bit longer. Just give it, give it a little bit of play. So now I need to make a mount like a plate that'll mount there. I can weld on, and I want a little retaining bolt, a bolt to come across here like a bar, so that if you pedal backwards or anything, or it's slack, this doesn't slip out and ruin your day. Or if you hit a big bump, it's happened before, hit a big bump in the road and bang, that jumps off and you've lost your chain line, so that's no good. But yeah, I've drawn up a little plan of what I'm going to do, and I'll show you actually. I'll give you a little demonstration on how I made this groove in here. and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, how to make a chain idler like this from a skateboard wheel. This is how I do it anyway. I need to spin this wheel in the drill press so I can carve away that groove, and this is how I do it. This is the arbor from my hole saw. This is the larger sized arbor, and what I do is take the drill out and it fits in there. Not perfectly, but pretty well. Then take a bolt, put a big washer on it, put it through there. There's obviously loads of ways you can do this, none of them easy, but excuse me, but this is how I'm doing it. It's hard to do everything one-handed. A little washer on there, bolt on there, tighten them up, and it should squash this all down and hold this tight so I can spin it in the lathe. So that's the next step. Not in the lathe, in the pillar drill, but yeah, that's the next step. Let's tighten it down and I'll get back to you. Okay, that's it mounted. It's been squashed so it doesn't spin on its own, and there you go. Now the way I do it is, you can see where I've done the other one on here, is run a file against it. Hang on. And slowly start carving a groove in it. It gets a bit hot as well, so you'll want to move the file a bit. Wiggle it back and forth, just keep going. I actually used a knife. I cut some out with a bit of a knife. I used a scraper. I tried a bit of an old bandsaw blade that I bent, which will actually dig in and cut. Try all sorts. It's not a quick job. You just got to keep going. Probably take 15-20 minutes really to get down, depending on what you do. But yeah, that's it basically. Not difficult, just laborious, but then after a while you'll end up with one like that. That's a bit wide actually. Could have done with being a bit narrower, but it doesn't matter. It's a bit more room for the chain to move about. Yeah, that's how you make yourself a £2.50 idler. Right, it's time to make a mount for this. I've just laid some laminate flooring in the house, and this is part of the toolkit, and it's good 3mm steel, so I'm going to use that because this is a budget build, obviously. I've marked a taper. This is the bit I'm going to use. There's a little drill hole marked there where I'm going to drill for this. So that will be mounted on there. Using my big bolt, obviously. That'll be mounted on there. Then there's another mark here. And this is going to be for this little bolt. not going to touch, but it will be close enough to stop the chain dropping out. It'll just retain the chain. I'm going to cut it off about there, make it look nice shape, and obviously it's got a bend at the top, so that's a nice mounting point for me to clamp it onto the frame, do some tests, and then when I think it's right, weld it on. It's a good surface for weld. It will be when I take all the paint off, but yeah, that is the next step. Let's do that. That's that drilled and shaped. I've obviously got to take all the paint off to weld it and that, but that is that. Should be about right, really, to keep the chain in. Also, going through my tube of bits of metal and that, I found an aluminium bar that will slide over the end of that. So I think I'll cut a bit off, slide it over, put a nut on the end, and then this can spin on there. Just looks a bit neater, and it can spin. I'll put some grease on it, and yeah, protect the thread on there and just make it look a bit nicer. So let's get down to that. Take the paint off this, smooth the edges, and then clamp it in position and see. I think I'll put a, yeah, clamp it in position and have a look at it then. Ready to go. Right, I think I've got the idler where I want it to be. I've clamped it on. Chain now goes from there to the idler, up to the top, clears the frame, sits pretty straight in the center of the idler, if you can see that. I think I'll tack weld it on and then see what we're going to do about the return side. Probably put a length of chain tube on or something to hold that. There's no pressure on the return side, it's just the weight of the chain. All the pressure when you pedal, the chain pushes up against this idler. So that's where all the pressure is. That's why you need a good one. Hopefully this will be alright. The return side, bit of chain tube or something. Might be able to fix it on here actually. Yeah, a bit of chain tube to make it clear. This. But it's just the weight of the chain returning, so that's not too bad. Right, let's weld that on and see what it's like. Well, I've put the idler on and I've fitted a chain tube, and that doesn't seem to be working. It keeps it away from the front wheel, but it keeps jumping off the back sprocket, so I've got to think of something else. I'll let you know when I work it out. Well, I think I've come up with a solution. The easiest thing would have been to buy a double idler, but I'm being tight. So I've made another idler and I've mounted it there temporarily, and it seems to work. There's no chain rub, and everything's dead silent, which I like. I think that'll work. Oop, this bike stand doesn't like it much. Yeah, nothing's coming off. Chain's not coming off. I've been turning it and messing about with it. Nothing's coming off. Seems to be alright to me. I really should make that top one adjustable, really, to take up tension as the chain gets slack, but I don't know, I might just weld it on. Anyway, I think that is the solution for now. That's it. It works. It's all welded on now. If I can do it one-handed, I'll show you. Hang on a sec. Well, there's the drivetrain. Works like a charm. Nice and quiet. Let's try it. I'll show you. Before the bike falls out of the stand. Backwards, forwards. Going down the road, bounced in a monk. Nothing's coming out. I can lift it out, but it doesn't come out. And if it does start to jump out, I'll put a little something here to hold it, but there you go. Right, I need a seat mounting solution. So I've started already. What I've done, I cut a piece of bar that will sit on the frame rails. I've sort of where I want the seat to be on the frame, just back from that green mark. So I cut a piece of bar that'll fit on the frame rails. It also raises this up, raises the seat up so it doesn't press against the rail. And put some bolts through. These are just temporary bolts, they need to be longer and better quality. And I was trying to think of a way to sort of centralise it in the frame. And creative solution, some of the skateboard bearings. I was going to cut a piece of metal that would fit inside and sort of fit where I wanted it, so it's sort of central, but then I thought, hang on, you can see those, slide them up, they sort of jam in pretty much where I want it. Even if it comes back and they're a bit loose, it still minimises sideways. So we're going to have the seat there, bolts going through, and we're going to have a metal plate on the bottom which will press against the bottom of the frame rail like it does on the King Cycle. So that will be the system for the front. For the back, some sort of bracket and strut thing, which I haven't worked out yet, but one thing at a time. Okay, I've cut out the plate which fits on the bottom of the frame rails. When I get some longer bolts, these will go through the frame rails and then that plate will be on the bottom, clamp it into position. As I say, those rollers, those bearings, keep it central. I'll put some, I'll get some like neoprene rubber or something strong and I'll put it on both sides of these so that when it's painted it's got a bit of protection. It'll stop it slipping and it'll protect the paintwork a bit. So that's that done. Now I've got to make a bracket for this to hold the back up. I'm just going to get some, probably get some aluminium flat bar, measure it, bend the sides up into tabs, drill them and drill the holes and bolt it on so there's a thickish piece of aluminium there, holding that. And then to attach to that, aluminium tube. This is from, you know, B&Q or whatever. Piece of Ali tube I found, and I crushed the end. All you do, I've got these two pieces of steel, trap the tube in between the vise, so one either side, trap it in between and tighten the vise up. And it makes a handy dandy end so that it'll actually fit with bolts. It'll fit through the flanges on there. If I can find a piece of tube which will fit inside this, another piece of Ali, I can make it adjustable. But there is other ways to do it, and I'll show you that in a later date. I think I've had a guts full for today, so I'm going to go in the house, finish up and edit this up, and yeah, I'll see you all again soon.